Hi, this is Todd from TT Bike Fit, and we're going to talk today about the ISM Adamo saddles. You may have seen also on our website that we have another video that talks about how to set these up. So it's very important to watch that if you do have an Adamo saddle. But we're going to talk about the different models and the differences between them. That's a question I get a lot. What's the difference between the racing model, the road model, and the other one we've started to carry is this Typhoon saddle over here. And if you haven't caught on to the whole Adamo thing yet, these really solve a major problem for folks who ride in the aero position, especially aggressive aero positions. We started using these ourselves a couple years ago, and after riding on all kinds of conventional saddles and trying everything that's out there over 15 years with little success, and just accepting that saddle discomfort was part of riding in an aggressive aero position, we found these and proved that was actually wrong. You see a lot more pro athletes starting to adopt these saddles now in triathlon, and even there's some behind the scenes in the pro road racing peloton who are using these things when their sponsors aren't looking, because they simply work. And as I said, they really work for the aero position because if you've been in an aggressive aero position, with a normal saddle with the nose running up the middle, that it can get quite uncomfortable in a relatively short amount of time. I know that with myself, even in an Olympic distance race, we're talking about a 1 hour bike ride, I have to sit up maybe 3 times during the race just because my saddle was so uncomfortable. And that was, with the rest of my position being perfectly dialed in and everything else, there was always this issue with the saddle discomfort, and I get the same thing from my fit clients every day. So these take the weight that you normally that a normal saddle will place onto your perineal area, which there's some stuff there that you really don't want to be crushing. It's not really that good for it, and spreads it out to the sides through these noses here. It really gives you a broader platform and a much more comfortable platform of support, and really puts the weight out in an area of your anatomy that's not that's more able to support that's an area that's really bone and muscle. So from a medical standpoint, it's very good, and most people notice right away from a comfort standpoint that it makes a huge difference that from the first second they sit on it. That is, of course, assuming that it's set up right, and I will refer you to that other video, as I said. And one question I get in general about these as well, and it was a reservation I had myself, the nose is so wide, I don't really like saddles with wide noses, and I don't think I'm going to like that. Well, it's possible that you won't, but you have to remember that you sit on these saddles about up here, and that it's missing about this much of nose. So when you look at a normal saddle, back from the nose some, these really aren't that much wider. And I know with me, where I didn't like the wide part was the very front of the nose of the saddle, and so here we have, you're sitting on these right, the wide part is kind of shifted back where it should be. And for most people, the extra width up front isn't an issue at all. But so let's look at the different models here and just see what the differences are. The top of the line is the so-called race model, or the ISM racing model. This one has titanium rails. It is the lightest of them. None of these saddles, let's be frank, are particularly light compared to super lightweight saddles you can get out there. But as we all know, weight is not the first consideration for time trialists or triathletes, especially in this instance where these can make the difference between staying in the aero position all day and sitting up all the time and being uncomfortable. This is, as I said, the lightest of them, titanium rails. It is also the narrowest of them, and that's really the main difference. And when we talk about them being narrow, we're looking at the distance across the wings here. With this saddle, it's in the neighborhood of 13 centimeters. This saddle also has somewhat less, although all these do have gel padding, this one has somewhat less gel in it than the other models. So in general, it's a bit harder and a bit narrower and a bit more curvy. It's really designed for the more aggressive kind of an aero position, a forward tilted pelvis position. That's the kind of people who tend to like this saddle the most. If you sit a little more upright, more back on your sit bones with less of a tilted pelvis, and or if you're looking to put one of these on a road bike, the so-called road model might be the one that works better for you. This one is a bit wider. If I put these right next to each other here, you should be able to see the difference in width across the wings here. That the road model is wider. You can see that it curves out a little more sharply than the race model, and it's really only about half a centimeter or so wider across here. The other difference is that this has chromoly rails, so it's a bit heavier. It's not really a significant amount. It's something in the neighborhood of 35 or 40 grams heavier. Picking them up, it's kind of hard to notice the difference, so I certainly wouldn't make the decision between these two saddles based on weight at all. These also have a bit more gel in the back. When you press in here in the back region where you'd be sitting up more with your sit bones, there's more gel. It's thicker and squishier, whereas this, the gel isn't as thick and it's really concentrated in two pads right here. So, again, if you're going to be sitting up more on your sit bones on the back, more toward the rear of the saddle, this might be more comfortable for you. Also, if you like a softer saddle or a bit wider saddle, again, this could be the one that you might want to try. We have several of our group who are roadies who just ride road bikes who use this particular model and really like it a lot. And even if you don't have an aggressive tilt, it can still really help with the discomfort issues that we talked about. Now, the third model we started carrying is the Typhoon, and this is really, you might consider this more of a recreational saddle. Certainly, you can see that it's a good bit wider than the other saddles, and it certainly has. And when I say wider, once again, we're mostly talking about the back of the saddle. The noses of them are all fairly similar, but in the back here, it's much wider, and here we have a lot of gel padding. So this is very soft, very thick padding, and I've found some triathletes actually really like this saddle, especially if they're coming off of a conventional saddle that's a wider saddle and a very soft saddle, and that's the feeling that they're used to or the feeling they like. Then you might want to try this model here. It's certainly the heaviest of them all, and it has a lycra cover as opposed to the leather cover on the other two saddles. But this one really gives, some people get on these and they say, well, they're just too narrow for me or they're too hard for me, and I just don't like that. I like a wide, soft saddle. Well, then this could be your answer right here. And I've had a couple people who said those exact words to me during bike fits, and I put them on this, and they were amazed that all their saddle discomfort issues were gone. So definitely, worth a try. This also can be a great saddle just for use on your commuter bike or something like that, where you're not in a super high performance position or anything like that, and you're just looking for a little extra comfort. This can be a great one for that. So that's the differences between the three Adamos that we carry, and I think it's really worth giving them a try if you have had saddle comfort issues. And as I said, please check out our setup video if you have one, because it really makes a big difference if these are set up properly. If they're not set up properly, you're just not going to like them at all. But if you're set up properly, we think you're going to love them just like we do.